Riverbend Awareness Project.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast episode are solely those of the individuals participating and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Riverbend Media Group or the Riverbend Awareness Project, its affiliates, or its employees. It is important to note that the discussion presented is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as medical advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified healthcare professionals for any medical concerns or decisions. The Riverbend Awareness Project is a product of Riverbend Media Group.
Welcome back to the Riverbend Awareness Project. We are joined today by people who've come and been on the podcast with us before, so thanks for coming back. We've got Lieutenant Marvin Crain from the Idaho State Police and Sergeant Bryan Lovell from the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office. Thank you guys. We're talking about traffic safety, so it should be good. And we're just going to jump in and ask what's kind of the different roles that you guys have in traffic safety.
In traffic safety.
Yes.
Well, we have a lot of the same roles in traffic safety.
Probably,
We have the same kind of purpose of being out there in traffic safety, making traffic stops, investigating crashes, and traffic control, and all of those things that come up. So there's different nuances in the way calls for service come into our office versus state police. And we don't tend to do as much traffic stops and work in the highways in that kind of manner because we are also responsible for burglary calls and thefts and other things in the community and within neighborhoods and off of the main, the highly traveled road areas. That's probably the easiest, most simplest way to sort of define it or separate it. But
I'd like to say it as this. It's a collaboration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So with Bonneville County, they have so many more responsibilities than we do in their area, right? Within their boundaries, like he said, they're answering calls of service for everything. And they have to respond to that. And then they have civil service and things of that nature that they have to do and be responsible for. But when the chips are down and either one of us have a hot call, we're all one team, right? That badge is that badge and we go. The nice part about it is Bonneville County, they have a jurisdiction that they're responsible for, and they handle all those calls as we spoke about. The Idaho State Police were responsible mostly for traffic safety on the highways and interstates and stuff like that. But what's nice about the Idaho State Police is we have law enforcement jurisdictions anywhere in the state of Idaho. So when they need help, we can come and help. When we need help, they can come and help. But in our area, District 6, what we consider District 6, we have 10 counties that we're responsible to be involved with. So we have a great working relationship with those counties, and I feel like we have a really great working relationship with Bonneville County due to the great people that are there.
Yeah, it takes that to function and to do what we do. And we have, by and large, supportive communities here. And so, when things happen, everybody comes running, and but that function of Idaho State Police versus the sheriff's office, like it sort of complements each other. And, as growth and things have happened in Idaho over however many decades, that you build those functions to complement each other. And that's what makes our corner of the world really great.
I think what's really neat to think about as a citizen in Bonneville County to know that if you need help and you call, we're all coming. It doesn't matter, right? We're all going to come.
Yeah. You've got
all the way from the local police department up to the state police.
I've been to calls and been to things where you've got neighboring jurisdictions that just even happen to be there.
Close.
And they're like, I'm here, I can help. You've got, we work a lot in our backcountry with the Forest Service law enforcement and the BLM law enforcement, Fish and Game, and we just have a lot of partners. But when things happen, people in this profession aren't afraid to jump in and do the job.
That's good to know as a citizen, like you said.
So Idaho doesn't really have jurisdiction like laws
issues?
Per se, do they?
Well, they're defined. Yeah. I mean, so in Idaho, sheriffs in Idaho are responsible for everything in their county, which includes incorporated cities.
But if you're on the border of a county and you see something going on,
you
can still respond
we
to
can,
it.
we can figure it out. Yeah, because we have areas that we have overlapping, like fire
Yeah.
districts and
Mhm.
and QRU response that are primarily maybe in one county, but also cover part of another county.
Yeah.
We get requests, pieces of our backcountry and along the Wyoming border. There's places we have to go clear into Wyoming and come back into Idaho to get to, right?
Yeah,
And
like
so-
McCoy Creek and areas like that.
So Lincoln County and the Star Valley Search and Rescue and those alpine resources, especially when it comes with everything across the board, search and rescue, ambulance and law enforcement stuff. Well, us, ISP, everybody sort of works together, whatever we need to do in those areas, because crime and things don't happen exactly in your bubble, in your jurisdiction.
Sometimes it's not that easy to get.
It travels up and down everywhere, and that's why collaboration and partnerships with all of the law enforcement that's available here works really well. So we figured out things happen that go from one place to another. They call and say, "Can you help us with this?" There's a lot of different resources from all of us. We have different resources that you're able to call and send to where we need to go.
So what are some of the most common distracted driving behaviors that lead to accidents that you guys see?
Anything that dealing with attention, texting, like to me, it encompasses the attention. It's usually most crashes are a product of speed and inattention, speed and or inattention. Those are probably the most common things. And then you've got other factors in there. Was it inattention from texting? Was it inattention because I had to look over here and see emergency lights and I don't know what's going on and I run into something or somebody? It's attention kind of encompasses a lot of things, but you've got over time a lot of mobile devices and electronics and things in the car that grab people's attention, and people's habits in that direction play into more crashes and things related to inattention. So
I think Bryan makes a good point there that it's easy to blame it on our devices, right? But what happens if we're eating in the car and we spill our drink? What happens if I see a lot of ladies that will change from one work clothing to another work clothing while driving down the road, or doing their makeup.
Putting the makeup
They're doing
on
it,
in the mirror.
changing while they're driving?
Yeah, or doing the makeup, right? Or you're tending to children that are in the back seat and your attention's back there.
Mhm.
And a big one is if you're tired or fatigued, pull over, walk around the car, because we get so many late at night where it's a one-car rollover where they've driven off the road overcorrected because they've fallen asleep and then roll the vehicle. So when we talk about distraction, there can be so many things behind that. Definitely phones are one of the major distractions we have, but there's so many other things that can take our attention off our focus.
It's electronics and mobile devices is probably just in the relative to the entire lifetime of anybody driving. That's one of those newest things that's been a factor over the last couple of decades.
So with that, like, there's the hands-free, right?
Mhm.
But now that there is so much technology, right, you can be distracted without holding the phone. So how does that kind of play into the
I think
distracted driving?
There's a lot of studies of you hands-free and you can be in a conversation and talking over Bluetooth or whatever. Everybody's probably done it. And you can get involved in that conversation and forget where you're going, forget where you've been, and people are distracted even though they're driving and they have nothing else going on in the car, but they're engaged in a conversation and thought process or whatever. And it can, I think, take away from your attention span in control in the car. But daydreaming, call it what, like I've had a number of times where I'm like, oh, I went from point A to point B, but I don't necessarily remember everything because I stopped at stoplights, I stopped at stop signs. I don't necessarily didn't notice that, something had changed along the way. Especially when you're drowsy. At night shift, I had that a lot where it's like, oh, I drove home from night shift and I remember everything, but then I think, well, did I really remember everything? When you're tired, everybody's been tired and driven a little bit, and then you start checking yourself on that, hopefully, before you fall asleep and have the rollover. But
I was a delivery driver for a long time, and doing the same route every day, you get complacent in it. Like, I noticed myself starting to doze off. So
repetitive habit.
I had to find different ways to keep me awake because music wouldn't do it anymore. So I switched to talk radio and sunflower seeds and whatever stupid thing I could find to keep my attention at least up a little bit.
Yeah.
Talk radio for some reason really helped.
Made you angry? No, just kidding.
I think that's what it was. I hated listening to it, but it was like,
because then you're like, hey, what's that guy saying? And you can disagree with it. You can get mad at it, whatever you want now. That's good. That's when people recognize that, hey, I've gotten so routine, and you recognize that something needs to change because it's affecting my ability to drive or pay attention, and you change your habit up to make that better. That's great when people do that. And not everybody does, and some people are better at it than others, but that's good when people recognize that.
I also didn't have a cell phone then. That was that long ago. If I got a call, it was from a radio, and that'd wake you up real quick. The radio's going off.
Oh, yeah.
Anything to add? Or
I'm good there, yeah.
Okay. Because I was thinking about, that was like one of our questions, but you kind of talked about it already, like the idea of you get in your habit of like your work commute is the same drive, and like kind of tips for staying alert and aware. Because I'll catch myself too, like daydreaming and just like, and then I'm like, oh, I'm driving right now. I need to pay attention because this is a vehicle and it could hurt me or other people. And I don't want that just because I'm not, like, I don't know. I think sometimes I get little nudges from, I don't know where, but it's like, pay attention, you're driving. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's important.
When you
Like,
talk about routines, a lot of times we'll go to crashes where somebody has crossed through an intersection every day of their life, morning and night, or a railroad crossing, and all of a sudden there's a different pattern, and they've been hit by a train or something's happened that they've been involved in an accident, and they say, well, I've been doing this for this many years with no problems, and all of a sudden today this happened, right?
Yeah.
So that routine thing can
Which is primarily the reason you see in construction areas when they've re-engineered an intersection or a crossing,
oh.
and you see signs before that say traffic pattern has changed.
And
That's
flags
the reasoning
flying
for that.
in X's and to draw your attention to it, right?
Yeah. Every time in our county, when they make what's been a two-way stop at an intersection into a four-way, and they put flags on it, or they change the speed limit. I remember on Ammon Road, it was 50 for a lot of years, and it changed to 40 probably more than 15 years ago now. And the flags on the stop signs had been there so long that they're faded and shredded from the wind and wore out. And I would go and stop someone for speeding along there, and they're like, no, it's 50. When did they change it to 40? And I'm like, well, about the time them flags were brand new.
That's crazy.
And they've been faded and wore out for about 5 years or so at least now, So, but it did just routine and didn't notice it.
I think one thing that's changed over the years is when I got my driver's license, my dad and the instructor taught you drive well ahead of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now people drive mostly just at the end of their hood. And it's interesting. We can be out on something, an incident, and let's use a traffic crash for an example on US 20 or I-15, and we can have what we call a rear guard, where we put a patrol car back at the back where traffic starts slowing down with just lights flashing and a sign, crash ahead, slow. Mm-hmm. And boy, people will come by, honk their horns at you, give you hand gestures. They're upset that you're on the side of the road, and you can look up and see the sea of tail lights and the brake lights breaking because of this incident ahead. Yeah. And they won't even notice it. And then they go flying into it, and you can hear them tires screeching, and they're coming to a stop and slide off the road, or especially in the wintertime when they lose control and go off the road. Yeah. And then when you go to deal with them, they're like, well, I didn't even see that. Mm-hmm. And you're like, how did you not see the sea of brake lights ahead of you, less than an eighth of a mile?
Yeah.
Because they're just paying attention
There's
to
everything that's going on inside that car, the inattention, and not looking out past and being a defensive driver.
Mm-hmm. The farther downrange the farther your eyeballs are driving, the more time your brain has to plan for and react to things. We teach that in emergency driving all the time. And I've gone through that with new cops on teaching emergency driving, and they're driving right off the front bumper of their car, and they're looking at cones or something in the course, and they can go completely at slow speeds, completely outside of the course and not notice and get lost to where they're at. And we're doing is driving in an oval, basically, right? So you have to teach them out of that habit. There's different things we used to teach people, commentary driving and stuff, to say, drive way down ahead, and you get better at it. But once you start recognizing that, you start noticing it yourself. I've done it. But I think Marvin's right. People get so close to looking at, and maybe it comes with being part of the distractions, and you're used to looking at things here.
Routine.
And you only look at your bubble and you don't look way down. And so you're missing all of those things that you may need to account for or plan for as a hazard that could be in front of you.
And for like law enforcement, when we're driving under stressful situations, you can review our videos and see, especially troopers or law enforcement that may not have that experience. As that tension rises, the tunnel vision comes in, and they don't see what's going on the outside until they gain that experience. Well, we're the same in real life, right? As we have stressors and things of that nature, and our mind's going 1,000 miles an hour while we're trying to focus on driving the car, our focus becomes tunnel vision because we're thinking about those things that are stressful, like how do I make the mortgage this week, or how do I pay for these high fuel prices, or my child's having some health issues, or whatever it may be, and that tunnel shrinks down. So just when you're in that motorized vehicle, try to relieve some of that stress. But a lot of us, that's our peaceful time, right? When we're alone and we can kind of think. And so it's just keeping a happy, healthy medium where you can open that up and still be a defensive driver.
Exactly. Yep. Taking a breath.
No crying while driving.
Yeah.
It may happen, but just know you still got to be alert, right?
Yeah.
Because none of us woke up this morning and said, man, life's been perfect the last month. I haven't had any stresses.
Yeah.
What are some of the most misunderstood or frequently violated traffic laws that drivers seem to forget?
Oh, wow. Frequently violated is probably speed, stopping completely at stop signs, stoplights.
Turn signals. Those safety things we put in place to keep crashes from happening.
Yeah. Those traffic control devices, whether it's painted on the ground, it's on a sign, it's an electronic light, whatever it is, they're there for a reason. And a lack of patience causes people to just get sloppy about that or just disregard it. And some of it is part of the problem is one person does it, the next person does it, the next person does it, or everybody behind them's in that routine and they're just following the subconscious flow of traffic that just goes in that line. But I have a couple pet peeves I always see, like when you have that center turn lane and people are driving down that center turn lane for miles.
Oh, that
instead of
makes me
waiting
mad.
and all to get up, and they don't save that much time. They're not saving enough time to really make much of a difference there.
I think you bring up a great point, and that point is aggressive drivers. Aggressive drivers are those ones that are going to be speeding, rolling stop signs, not using their turn signals, cutting people off in traffic. But as Deputy Lovell states, they are not saving a huge amount of time in their travel. If they really boiled it down, they'd probably save 6 seconds, 7 seconds, depending on how far they're traveling. And how many of us have had that aggressive driver cut us off, upset us, and then we pull into a city, and the first stoplight you pull up to, there they are, right there with you.
That happened to me all the time coming to work. I'd come to work, our shift change was at the courthouse downtown, and I'm coming from Ryrie. It took the same amount of time to drive from Ryrie to, say, Hitt and 26 or Woodruff and 26. And it took the same amount of time to get there as it did to drive downtown. And people, even when I've done that in an unmarked car and I'm going the speed limit, people are a little bit big of a hurry and they try to get through that yellow right real fast. And we end up at the same intersections. We end up at the same spot. We end up in the same place. So they didn't really gain anything, but they added risk to themselves and everybody else on the way. And we see that a ton. It's patience and not recognizing. Same thing when we've got the road blocked from a crash and cars are backed up and people are upset. I need to get there. I need to go here. I need to go there. Well, I'm sorry. What can I do? There's power poles, power lines, people injured, hurt, tow trucks in the road. Like I can't
They
just
don't realize
magically lift
everything that's
that.
going on up there.
Yeah, and if you just take your time and go with the flow of what we're trying to get people around, you're going to be there the same time as everybody else. You're not going to. It's not a difference that makes a difference in what you gain.
I was taught that in driver's ed, like that 5 miles an hour that you're going to go over the speed limit. How far is that really going to get you ahead? And
Yeah,
it was something I always paid attention to. Like on trips to Salt Lake, like you'd see somebody passing you, and then as soon as you're getting off the interstate, there's that car there.
Especially the amount of risk. Like if you that much more you're trying to gain, but you're adding 10 times that much risk a lot of times, and most people are lucky and get away with it, and it's lucky and you're fine until it's not, and then that's where we're there for the cleanup afterwards. You know,
when you talk about that, just okay, I'm going to go 5 miles an hour over the speed limit or 10. Your reaction times delayed, your stopping distances increased. I mean, all those risk factors elevate, and so the question becomes, is it really worth it, right? And any of us involved in a critical incident at the end of that would have said, I would a lot sooner give up 5 or 6 seconds of my life than to be involved in this right now, right?
I think it was yesterday I saw a commercial saying the difference between going 20 miles an hour and 30 miles an hour, if you hit somebody, the risk of surviving that goes down 80% or something like that. Just in that 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, because your reaction time and the amount of distance you're covering. So you've got the time it takes for your brain to go, oh, I've got to slam on the brakes. And your brain tells 1 foot to go from the gas to the brake. And all the mechanics of your car, it takes time to do that. While before the braking actually starts, if you're going 30 mile an hour, you're covering way more ground than at 20 mile an hour. If you're going 50, covering way more ground than at 30. So you've covered all that ground, and then it still takes time for braking to slow you down. And then if that object, if you can't avoid it and you're going to hit it one way or another, you know, you're going to have that much more force and impact. I wish I could find, if I could show you, there's a video we show people in our training of that difference, and that it's out of Great Britain, so it's in kilometers. You got to wrap your head around the metric system for a second. But it actually shows, like they walk out and show that a test crash, basically, vehicles hitting a semi, and the difference in how much damage occurs in just a small increment of speed, a small speed difference in there. That's where it makes a difference right there versus if you're trying to make up a little bit of time, that's not a difference that makes a difference. But the opposite is exactly true, that slower you go, it absolutely makes a difference in your ability to avoid something or not crash as hard into something if it's not avoidable.
Well, because isn't there, the English major is trying to talk about math and science for a second, but isn't like when you have more speed, isn't there generally more force to?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, it just takes that much more. It takes that much more to affect the forces of centrifugal force. It just takes that much more to get it to stop, right? Your brakes don't work better the faster you go, right? Your brakes are going to work, your brakes are going to work at the same rate. They don't stop you faster the faster you go.
Takes longer.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think a point to be made there is the higher speed you go, the more brake failure you're going to have because they're going to heat up. And so they do work better at lower speeds than they do at high speeds. And we experience that in law enforcement. When we're running code somewhere, the trooper or the law enforcement officer in the car needs to realize, after I've used my brakes a couple times at high speeds, there's going to be brake fade. And so I'm not going to be able to stop like I have done until they cool back down.
Yeah.
Right?
So out of the 16 million things we're trying to worry about all at the same time, that's one of them that becomes real, real important right there.
Also, just like wear and tear on your brakes. Like, if you brake less hard, then your brake pads are going to last longer. So it saves you money in the long run.
Brake sooner, brake longer.
And your passengers don't have a neck brace.
They don't spill their Frosty or whatever. Ham sandwich doesn't go in the windshield. All that.
So this is going to shift gears a little bit. When you're passing a semi truck, what are some like good general? Because you do generally speed up for that, right?
Oh, I'd hope so. Yeah, I'd hope so. And we have a new law, right? A
Yes.
new law
We
that
do.
says they can do
Mhm.
80 miles an hour on the interstate or highway in some places where it's clearly marked. But a lot of our major companies are still going to be running under that speed limit because it's a financial situation, right?
Insurance for them, right?
Well, not necessarily. Some insurance reasons, and also because of fuel consumption. They'll find out the best place to get the best mileage and use the best fuel consumption. And so a lot of those trucks are still going to be governed at like 72 miles an hour. But when we talk about safety around commercial vehicles, that is a great question, because this is the thing. We've done ads in the past about the no zone area,
Yeah.
right, around semis and commercial vehicles. And what that means is if you can't see their rear view mirrors, they can't see you. And so there's a lot of places in a little 4-door sedan or any vehicle that you can be, and they can check their mirrors and they can't see you. And so when you decide to make that move around a commercial vehicle, don't dilly-dally, right? Get out, move around that vehicle, and come back in. Now, if it's on an interstate or a U.S. highway that's 4 lanes with a divider in between, you have to just pass at the speed limit, right? But if you're on a 2-lane road with a passing dotted line in the middle, you can get up to 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, pass that commercial vehicle, and then come back into your lane and be just fine. And also what they've added within the last year is if you are on a 2-lane, 1 lane going each direction with a passing lane now, when you're using that passing lane, you can also increase your speed up to 15 miles an hour over the speed limit, make that pass, and then come back in. The catch to that is the vehicle you're passing has to be doing under the speed limit. So you can't say the speed limit's 70, they were traveling 71, so I went over the speed limit to pass them because they were already doing the speed limit, right?
'Cause theoretically, you should only be doing 70.
Yeah.
Nothing's
But if
ahead
they're
of you,
going
right?
65 and you need to get around
or
them.
69 in a 70,
Yeah.
right? And there's a lot of times where do we have passing lanes where there's an uphill grade.
Mhm.
And so these commercial vehicles can't pull the uphill as well as you can in your vehicle. And so at that point, you can go around, pass them, and get back in your lane. But once you do make the decision, don't just ride there. Don't just sit the side of them and ride, because they can't see you a lot of the time.
Get past them.
Yeah. Get past them, get back in your lane.
Yeah, out of that blind spot. That's good. They make those passing lanes for a reason. The places where there's dotted lines versus solid line, they're there for a reason. That's back to traffic control devices. They're all there for a reason. People just ignore them sometimes. Too much.
The double yellow lines people ignore a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We look at this, and Bryan brings up the reasons. Well, the Idaho Transportation Department, they have people that all they do is study traffic patterns.
Mhm.
We do traffic crash reports for 2 reasons. One is for insurance, right? Who has culpability in this crash? And it may be this person has 60% culpability, this person has 40% culpability. But the other thing that comes out of that is the Idaho Transportation Department looks at every crash we do, and it goes into a study on how do we make our roads safer. And so that's where these
How can
lines and
things
stuff
flow,
come. Yeah.
everything's safe. They're gathering all that data. It's a lot of statistical data of what the conditions were and which way people were going, what the factors were, the circumstances, whatever. So
Do we
they
have a
can-
problem area that we need to
Yeah.
look at and adjust, right?
Mhm.
The better they can engineer that, the less crashes we have, the more time we have to do other things, the less costs it is on resources, and all that stuff translates into costs to everybody that lives here.
So as a driver, if you come up on a crash that's just happened, emergency responders aren't there yet, what's the best thing you can do in that situation?
Boy, for me, I would say make sure that whatever you do is safe first, right? Don't make the situation more dangerous for other people
So
or
you
yourself.
shouldn't stop in the middle of the road.
Right. And I'll get into that a little bit here in a second, but if you could set yourself up so you could start a traffic control situation to warn people, right? Turn your hazards on.
Mhm.
Put your vehicle in a position that maybe protects. Maybe we have an occupant that's been thrown from the vehicle and laying in the middle of the road, and we don't want other cars to come past there. Think of those things and do the best you can to set up a traffic safety situation so the scene would be safe, just like we would if we showed up. After you have that, maybe make assignments to other people that are stopping and have somebody call 911, have somebody start stopping traffic coming the other direction. Do whatever you need to make it safe and then start rendering aid, right? But what we do have is everybody wants to be a good Samaritan, and they show up and everybody parks on this side, that side, in the middle, and then we're trying to send traffic through all that, and it becomes more dangerous than if they was, just think about that just a little bit as what's the best way and the safest way to make this scene safe so I can start rendering first aid and getting the help here I need, right? And of course, number one is to be contacting 911 and getting emergency personnel en route.
Yes.
That would be stressful.
It is. It's not something everybody sees every day, right? Not used to it. We get used to it. Yeah, there's a crash. We're going to this. We go, then we clear. We go to the next one. It's not something everybody's used to having to go to or be on the front row of every single day. So it's hard to think about what to do. So that's a great question to ask and for people to think about, for sure.
I would say this too. We're getting some pretty serious crashes. We're above our numbers on fatalities so far this summer, right? So if you're not one of those individuals that were first on scene and you're rendering first aid or you're helping with traffic control till law enforcement gets there, but you've seen it happen, please contact one of our local agencies in that area. Let them know you're a witness, and please give us a witness statement. There's a lot of times we're trying to put these fatal car crashes together, and you may be the piece of the puzzle that we're like, oh, okay, you've seen it from that angle. That gives us the answer we've been looking for. So if you were a witness to it, please let somebody know and let us put the whole puzzle together.
We need your perspective.
Yeah.
Even if it's a different perspective from everybody else, which it will be. That's a common thing. We're used to that. But every bit of piece of information is every bit of information is important to piece that together. Absolutely.
So after the emergency vehicles have arrived and they're all on the scene, then that becomes what's the safest response to
what's going to happen
all the emergency
there,
vehicles.
Yeah, what's going to happen there is the first emergency responder is going to take control of that scene, and then they're going to first evaluate, is it safe, right? If it's not safe, they're going to start directing people how to clean it up to make it safe. Then they're going to render first aid, and then they're going to start looking for who's involved, try to separate all that out. Then they're going to start looking for witnesses, right? And let's say you were the witness and you pulled up and you helped on everything. We're going to ask you to either give us a statement then or go home and respond to us with an electronic statement form. But the other thing, too, you bring up a really good point, and Deputy Lovell here brings up this same point, is sometimes this is the most traumatic thing you're going to experience, and it's going to rattle you, right? So are you safe to drive away from that point at that point? So there's been many times that we'll say, hey, you know what? Let's go get you in your vehicle. Let's get the air conditioner going. Let's have you just decompress for just a minute. I just want you to sit here for a second, and then I'm going to come back and visit with you. And then we'll come back and forth, and then, hey, how's things going? You doing okay? Do you need somebody to come pick you up? Do you need somebody to drive you home? Or are you doing okay? Yeah, I think I'm doing better. Okay. And then maybe we come back a third time, right? But we wait until it's safe to let them to drive away, because it can rattle people,
Yeah.
It might be different than what you see on the TV when it happens right in front of you. And your brain's actually processing, is what I'm seeing really what I'm seeing? Yeah. It takes a minute to soak in, and then
So now if you're pulling up on the scene of an accident and emergency responders are already there, what's the best thing to do?
We hopefully have it under control at that point, right? And if we need you, we're going to stop you. I mean, there's times we've been out in the middle of nowhere, and I think Bryan can experience this too, and somebody pulls up and they look like, hey, they know somewhat about what they're doing. So, hey, get out of the vehicle, hold this sign.
Tell them to go, stop that, get in the way of that, and don't let them go this way.
Put this vest on, hold this sign. And,
it's that scene.
Break out the traffic control.
We're in the
sign.
process of that scene safety. We've been on a ton of them where someone comes up, I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, how can I help? And we may be trying to just keep traffic from driving over the middle of it. And like, you go help the people that are hurt. Let us finish making it safe or whatever.
And typically we know, right? So we can say, hey, we've got somebody with this, going
Yeah.
on right now. Could you go deal with that, please?
Mm-hmm.
And so, man, and we have been blessed many times where a doctor or a nurse has showed up on scene, and for law enforcement, we're like, oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Great timing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're going through a checklist of this is what we need, this is what to do next. But if you're just rolling up on it, if it's already under control,
We're going to keep you rolling.
slow down and be patient, because you might have to wait for other traffic to go. And, most of the in town here intersections, you got blind spots and blind areas. That's where we see people get frustrated. Why can't I go? Why can't I go? And they're mad at us. Like, hey, it's because we don't want you to run over our first responders or our witnesses. And we can't have you just go out in front of other people and have another crash. Just be patient. Our goal is to get you around that and on your way as fast as possible or as easy as possible, which might make you mad because you have to turn around and go around the mile or the other way. But that's because of we're trying to maintain that scene safety.
Yeah.
And we've just have to protect some of that. If they were involved in that crash, they would want us to do the same thing for them. And some people it's a patience thing. And if maybe they're having a bad day, I don't know. But, we see that quite a bit where it's like, man, if you would just be patient in what you're doing, or someone's out there trying to manage this the best they can. And some of these scenes are really long, and you've got one cop trying to take care of bleeding people or something, and you've got maybe two others on each end of a long scene just trying to communicate of making a space for more emergency personnel to come in and get these people out of the way so they can get there and help. And it can be chaos for a minute, depending on when people roll up. So patience is key. Something's going on. The lights are there for a reason. We have so much to do. We can't just decide to go set up in the busiest spot and just divert traffic for no reason. We don't do that.
Deputy Lovell talked about pet peeves earlier, right? This is one of mine. We have a scene. Commerce is huge, right? And when we back up traffic, the state can see commerce leaving, right?
Yeah.
Especially if there's any kind of huge delay on that. So we try to open up a lane. Quick clearance is what we preach all the time. Quick clearance. This is my pet peeve, though. When we open up a lane or we open up a way through this critical scene and you're coming through, and two things. One, the biggest pet peeve is, I got to get my cell phone out.
Mm-hmm.
Take a picture of
And
it.
I've got to video it as I come through. First of all, if that was your loved ones, would you want somebody doing that, right? And second of all, you're driving distracted through a critical incident scene. And the second one is when we're trying to get traffic moving, especially if we're talking on high traveled areas, it doesn't need to be US 20 or I-15. It could be Sunnyside. It could be anything like that. Traffic backs up in a hurry.
Yes, it
right?
does.
It doesn't take long. So we open that up. We try to get traffic flowing, but then you got Mr. Super Safety that is barely putting along, and there's 100 yards between him and the vehicle ahead of him. And you're like, hey, come on, we need to get this traffic flowing.
Watch the guy
And
waving you through.
He's just put. Well, the reason that becomes a huge concern is because now traffic backs up, and let's say we're on I-15 at 80 miles an hour, and then I talked about this earlier, all of a sudden traffic stopped, and then we start having secondary. And we just had this up in Ashton 2 days ago, right, on the Ashton Hill.
Pile up.
Yeah, we ended up having 5 cars involved because we had a minor crash, and then as cars were coming, they just kept crashing into each other because
We're speed up.
inattention,
Yeah.
right, and then not defensive driving.
If all those lights come on ahead of you and people are slowing down, there's a reason. Something's going on. And like it or don't, you can think it's a dumb reason or a valid reason. Something's causing that, and that should cause you as a driver to be cautious until you can reasonably think that that's out of the way. But that is a big pet peeve of people not paying attention to us cops trying to get you through there, and they want to get the picture. They want to be the one that says, I sent that to the news or posted it on the social media, and they're doing this. And you guys had a trooper, a sergeant over in Jerome that got hit by a car, and he's doing traffic control, trying for a truck on fire, and someone's trying to get the picture of that, and they hit him, and they had live flight him here, and that almost cost him his life.
Cost him his career.
Yeah. He's working one day, providing for his family, and almost dies the next day he's not, right? And all because someone's trying to get that picture. How is it really that important to do that in that moment? And it's not. The important thing is you're paying attention to where you need to go and watching where somebody's trying to get you through.
Goes back to the bubble, but in more of like not a literal way, but I mean, literally, you should be looking outside of your bubble around your car, but also your own bubble. Like, think about other people. And like, if you were in that situation, how would you want other people to be responding? So like, think outside your bubble, literally, and
it's not about
metaphorically.
You in that moment. It's not about whatever you're impatient about. It's not about, it's about everybody trying to keep that place safe or area safe so they can get it open and out of the way again.